Lori Grimick, Director of the Portland District Library, and I'm so happy that you decided to join us for our Batik project. I know it was supposed to come like over a month ago, but between COVID and running the library and all sorts of other things, supply chain issues and my bad mathematics, when I was trying to figure out how much dye each of you would get per packet, we got a little bit behind. So thank you for being patient with me. You should have picked up your Batik bag by now. Your bag will contain 2 pieces of muslin for you to do your Batik project with, a set of instructions that you can follow along with the video, 5 bags of dye. Everybody gets the same color. There's a yellow, a red, a pink, a blue, and a black. It is mixed with salt, pre-mixed with salt, so you should have just the right amount to mix up the dye that you need. A bag of wax pellets, beeswax, 2 paintbrushes, your genting needle, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, who knows? We'll just hope that I am. Your genting needle, and some rubber gloves so that you don't get a whole bunch of dye on your hands. I think you get 4 rubber gloves. Excuse my cough. I'm recovering from a cold, so if I start coughing, please just ignore that and move on. You will want to provide a pencil, which I have one in my pocket. Forgot to pull it out. This is my Good Grammar is Sexy pencil. However, it has been sharpened to the point where it just says grammar is sexy, but still a true statement. You will need, if you do not have a dedicated craft space that you don't care about surface, then I would lay down some sort of tarp. This is a plastic tablecloth that we had used part of to decorate the library, and I have it left over. You'll want some newspaper. You'll need some water, a whisk, and some containers for mixing up the dye. I forgot to bring a whisk, so I have made a whisk out of coffee stirrers and some tape. We'll see how that works out for me. Some sort of crock pot or pan for melting the wax, and then an iron, as if for clothing. And that is what you're gonna need. Excuse me. So we're gonna start out, you get 2 pieces of fabric so you can make 2 different designs. And basically you're gonna start out sketching the design that you want with your pencil onto the muslin. Since we're beginners, I'm assuming we're all beginners, it might be better to start with larger, less detailed pictures, but you can really do whatever you want. There's some examples on your instruction sheet of things that they have done. So this is obviously a little more detail oriented because there's the checkerboard pattern on the balloon. This is the example. They drew some mountains there. I have decided, because I'm slightly obsessed with dahlias, and it's kind of the season for dahlias, I am going to do sort of an abstract dahlia batik. So my thought is that I'm going to draw a series. Let's see if I can do this. A series of these petal shapes. I should probably make them bigger, huh? That's weird. I make a swoop on the left-hand side and then more straight curve on the right-hand side. But that's just me. I suppose here we'll make a straight and then the swoop on this side. Interesting. I'm not that much of an artist, so drawing for me is not the best, but we'll try it. And you know what? By the time I get all the dye and all the batik and everything, I bet it's gonna look gorgeous. Let's see. Let's put another one coming up out of there. You get to see me go through this in real time. I think we need one right here. It'll just go off the top. Let's put, it's like a bigger one. I'll put, all right, I actually wasn't gonna make you watch me draw this whole thing. And yet, here we are, and I'm still drawing. Okay, so there is my pattern. Really does not look much like a dahlia, but you know what? We'll go with it. Because you are kind and you will forgive me for not being a particularly good artist. Okay, so the first step is drawing it onto the muslin, your pattern onto the muslin with a pencil. Now I'm gonna turn off the camera for just a moment while I heat up my wax and get my needle ready, because the next step is wax application. So in order to melt the wax, you should put it in a pan on the stove at a very low heat and melt the wax pellets down until they're liquid. And then you can keep it on the stove top to keep the wax from, it cools very quickly. It cools and hardens very quickly. Or they say you can use a crock pot and turn to a very low heat. I would imagine you might want to put one of those crock pot lining bags in there, just to make cleanup of your crock pot easier. Although I suppose once the wax is melted, you can just wipe it out. Since I am at the library and don't have access to a stovetop or my crock pot or anything like that, I decided to just melt the wax in the microwave and use that. And then I immediately clogged up my Jentang needle so that no wax came out of it. I got like this little tiny line here, and then I splodged some wax around. So the great thing about crafting as an adult is that it causes you to be creative and resourceful in ways that you haven't been since you were little. You know, when you were little and like something would go wrong, you'd be like, "Wow, that's okay, I'll just do it this way." Now that we're adults, we feel like there's a certain way we have to do everything. So you have your Jentang needle. Should you be better at this than me, as I always say in these craft videos, you will probably do a better job than I have. So if you're better than me at this, then you can just draw basically the idea is that you have your hot wax, your liquid wax, you pour it into this hole, or you scoop it out. You know, you put it, like you scoop some in. You can either pour or scoop, whichever is easier for you. And then you would use this kind of like a pen, and you would draw along your pencil drawings. Unfortunately, as mentioned, I have clogged my needle immediately. We're also having a hot water heater issue, so I don't even have hot water to try to like heat this up and melt the wax again. I tried using, if you can see, there's a little bit of wax still on my paintbrush handle because I tried gouging out the wax with that. But guess what? I just made this unusable for myself. So please, please, please do try the Jentang needle. That is the traditional way of doing batik. See if you can make it work for you. You're probably more talented than I am and you have more resources at your disposal than I do. So you can probably make this work. I cannot. So I am going to, oops, I got water on my fabric. I am going to improvise. I was microwaving my wax. Here's my hot wax. It smells kind of like I'm at the yoga studio. And I am going to use my little paper bowl. Oh, let's see. I don't know. There's a couple different things you could do. You could use a paintbrush. I'm gonna try pouring it. We're gonna see what happens if I just, woo, that does not work. Whoa, and I just spilled it. Woo. All right. Everybody who always watches these and says, oh, we appreciate that you like are such a buffoon. They don't use that word. We'll really appreciate this video because look, I just smooshed everything all over the place. This might actually be one where I need to start over. Let's see if painting works. Oh yeah, you can use your paintbrush, okay. Sweet, okay. All right, you know what? I'm not gonna start over again because you need to see me, warts and all, right? One thing I noticed when doing crafts with adults is that they feel like there's one certain way to do everything, and that once you like, if it goes awry, then you're doomed. But guess what? That is not the case. There's always a way to fix things. And there's always a way to keep on trucking. That's what we as adults do in our lives, right? So I'm just gonna use my paintbrush and I'm gonna paint the wax on with a paintbrush. I would not recommend trying to pour it on delicately because as you can see, I have made a giant waxy mess. My paintbrush is getting a little full. Let's try to see if I can. And you can see how quickly this wax dries up, or not dries up, hardens in here. So I'm gonna have to go back to my microwave. That's why it would be wonderful to have a stovetop or a crock pot where I could have kept all this. Now the great thing about Batik is that if you look at this picture here, all these little crackles and little extra bits of wax, they even recommend possibly like putting extra bits of wax onto the fabric to add interest. So all these extra little bits of wax are just gonna make it more interesting. So yeah, I'm gonna have my what do you call it? I'm gonna have my dahlia here, but I'm also gonna have some interesting little blobs and tidbits along the way, and that's gonna make it more, it's gonna make it my own. The thing to remember when you're painting the wax, and I'm probably gonna turn off the camera and then finish painting my wax on and maybe clean up a little bit of this giant mess I made. Ooh, look at that. Too bad there was no errant hairs on this tablecloth. I could have just given a, I'm gonna open up a waxing studio here. I'm here for eyebrows and, you know, men's backs. What was I saying? Oh, the thing to remember is that wherever you put the wax is what is going to remain white. So I'm basically gonna have color on all of the fabric except for these lines where and these splotches where I spilled. Then that is what's gonna be white. So when you're making your design and you're putting the wax on, you can keep that in mind. There's some spots, you know, perhaps you will want some places to be white. You can also, like if you wanted, like let's say that I wanted, you know, like all of this background to be pink or something. And then I wanted these lines to be blue. You could do that in multi-stages. You could paint the wax, dye the pink, take the wax off with an iron, which we'll get into later. Then you could paint everything but the white lines and do them blue. Or you could paint the dye on, I suppose. So there's like a lot of different effects you can do if you want. I'm sure for something like this, my guess is that they put the wax on this grid pattern, dyed it blue, and then probably painted the ones that they wanted to stay blue with the wax, and then they dyed the red, which is how they probably got the red here, and then the purple was the red and the blue together, because you can also layer dyes and change the colors. So that would be my guess, is that they did the grid work to keep it white, dyed it blue, covered up the ones they wanted to keep blue with the wax, dyed it red. So you can do things like that too. So you saw me, you saw my project go horribly awry on camera. So like I say, now I'm gonna reheat my wax because mine cools off very quickly in the microwave, and I will finish painting it onto my fabric, and then I will start this up again, and we will mix up some dyes and see what that is all about. And I thank you in advance for being patient with my horrifying mistakes. All right, I am going to turn off the camera again for a titch, and then we will move forward from there. Hello, I am back. As you can see, I sacrificed a paintbrush because this thing is ruined now. It is full of wax. But I did get wax on my pencil lines. If you decide to be an insane person like me and do it this way, I heated up the wax in just as one of these paper bowls in the microwave, and then I had good success with tipping it like this, and then just like dipping that, and then just doing like a dab technique kind of a thing. Doing like just trying to paint it on didn't give me enough wax, but I did have success with like dabbing it on. Oh, I didn't really do this one. Okay. Well, such is life. So, yeah, I forgot to finish this line right here, so that is fine. What was I gonna say? So I'm gonna put my gloves on now because I've already mixed up my dye. So like I say, you have, that's on backwards. You have red, yellow, blue, pink, and black. The black is to do the crackle effect at the end, or you know, if you want to use black on your batik, then that is totally a-okay. So you're going to need some sort of bowl to mix it up in, and it makes a fair amount. I feel like you could have seen it when it was over there, but anyway, it makes a fair amount of dye. So if it's in a container with a tight fitting lid, it does last for a good amount of time, you know, like months even. So if there was something else, I mixed up my pink dye and my blue dye. I didn't feel like doing all of them. Also, I don't have that many containers here. So if there was something else that you wanted to dye one of these colors, then go for it. Or you can keep it and do some batik later, or you can do some other project that involves dye. Basically a generous 3.5 cups of water, and then whisk it up and mix it, and you have your dyes. I'm obviously not going to save mine because I do not have tight fitting containers. If you got one of those sets of like the Ziploc bowls with the lids, I bet that would probably work fine. So in terms of putting the dye on, there's a couple different ways that you can do it. You can dip the entire thing. If you just want one color, just dip the whole thing into the dye and be done. You could dip parts of it. It's kind of like an Easter egg. You can dip parts of it, or you have some paintbrushes. You can paint the dye on. These are the thin, flat paintbrushes, so you could do like even like very delicate dye application if you wanted. I actually should have brought down a larger paintbrush because my plan is, we're gonna try this, I want to do like pink on half of it and then blue on half of it, and I'm hoping that there will be a lovely purpley overlap in the middle. I don't know if that's gonna work. We shall see. So I actually want to slop on a fair amount of dye. I might actually dip. We're getting crazy up in here. I do have some paper towels handy in case things go awry, as has been evidenced is most likely to happen. I don't know. I'm wearing work clothes. I'm wearing nice clothes, so now I'm afraid to dip dye. I know. I'm going to paint on the pink, and then I will dip dye the blue. And we'll see how that works out for me. So basically, I'm just going to paint this dye on my blue tablecloth. I know words. My blue tablecloth is making it look kind of a strange color, but yeah, I just want to get that dye up in there. As with most dyes, the longer you leave it in, the longer you put the dye on, the more you slop on there, the brighter it's going to be. But if we lift it away from the tablecloth, we can see that it is getting nice and pink. My staff sometimes does, depending on what project we're doing, but they often want to do these art projects, and so they sign up for the bags a lot of times because, you know, they're patrons of the library too. So they get excited. They always make fun of my videos because invariably I make some sort of mistake. I thought someone was just coming in the room. Invariably I make some sort of mistake or say something truly bizarre, and then they just make fun of me. So they are gonna have a field day with this one, because I don't know if you noticed, but I don't know about this project. This is one, sometimes I practice. I'll do like a practice thing. But the problem with practicing on these is that, you know, like the Jendong needles I bought, I was making 15 bags. I didn't have an extra needle. I didn't have extra wax. I didn't have extra dye. So I didn't want to, you know, like basically this is my one shot. This here is my one shot to make this. So you get to see me mess it up a little bit. I'm sure that in my years of doing adult crafts, I have had more proud moments than this, but all right, let's see how far, or should I do it? I want to do more than half. I want to try to get that purpley. Maybe it'll look kind of like this because, you know, it's a blue dye on the pink. We'll see. Or maybe I'll just end up with half, you know, with pink and blue, and it won't really create a purple. I don't know. We'll see. It's all the grand experiment, isn't it? All these crafts. And the thing is, even if it turns out a little bit ugly, it's something you made yourself, and you can be proud of it and just be like, hey, I did that. And maybe as it turns out, maybe one of you is going to be so good at the Jendong needle and batik that, like, you know, this becomes your new thing. Maybe you're going to make batiks for everyone for holidays, and you're going to sell them at art fairs. Who knows? I have a batik at home that I bought in South Africa. Nope, I wasn't in South Africa. I was in Malawi, Africa. Anyway, that does not make me sound like any less of a pretentious nincompoop. But it's really beautiful. I have a very beautiful batik. And I was going to bring it in so you could see what a well-done batik looks like instead of my sad little efforts here. But unrelated to anything except for, you know, that, like, who knows what you're going to create. We did a, before COVID, we had an in-person art program where we took coffee stirrers, wooden coffee stirrers, and then frames, and we painted the coffee stirrers and we put them in the frames to create these, like, abstract artworks. So there's my pink, and what the heck, we'll try dip dyeing the blue. Anyway, I made one for my son's nursery, and I forced my husband to hang it up. He was probably like, oh, okay. But I made him hang it up, and I just the other day was looking at it, and I was thinking, you know what, I really like this thing that I made. So I think it complements his room well. Okay, so here we go. We're going to try it. We're just going to dip in there, and I want to do a little bit of the pink. Some of the pink. Oh, I actually meant for that to be more, like, skewed, but oh well. And then we'll pull it out. Oh, well, the blue looks kind of purpley anyway, doesn't it? Interesting. Interesting. Well, let's dip it in again and see what happens if we... I might have had, I don't know. I don't dye things very often, but I might have had better results of color mixing had I let it dry in between, is my guess. However, you do not want to sit here and watch my batik dry. I am quite confident of this fact. So there we go. Woo, look at that. And now when the wax comes off, that's gonna be white below where that is. Let me move my die. So I'm not gonna show you the rest of the things because again, I don't want this video to be like 8 hours long and have you be like, ugh, she needs to stop talking, because no one's gonna do this project if this video is 8 hours long. So anyway, what you're gonna do now is, so you can mix the dye colors, you can paint it on in different ways. Like, you know, I could have done like some petals, like I could have alternated pink and red or pink and yellow or something. Whatever your picture is, you can paint it accordingly. Before I set my arms down, I suppose I should make sure there is no dye on the table, because I actually love this cardigan. I'm a librarian and I need my cardigans. So I don't want to ruin this cardigan. But anyway, so when you get all your dye on, you can let it dry between colors, and then I think that the dye mixing will work a little, although you can sort of see that where the pink was there underneath the blue. It's very purpley blue. I ordered these dyes from Amazon. They are Dylon dyes, in case you do get really into batiking and you want to do more of it. Dylon dyes, D-Y-L-O-N. They have many different colors. Oops, I'm getting really close with my cardigan. Anyway, so the next, you would let this dry. Once you're all done applying the colors that you want, then the other step, if you want to do the crackle, I mean, you don't have to, this is your project, so you can do whatever you want. But if you want to do this crackle, which is kind of like sort of a traditional batik, not method, technique, then basically what you would do is you would let your muslin dry completely, and then you would heat up some wax again in your, you know, crock pot or your pan or whatever it is. And then you would use just however you want to get the wax on there. You're basically going to cover the entire thing with wax. You can use a big paintbrush. Like I say, you're going to sacrifice the paintbrush. So if you have a big paintbrush, if you want to come back here and get, I might only have those sponge paintbrushes. But I might have some bigger ones. You can stop by and see me and see if I have any bigger paintbrushes. You could accidentally pour it all on like I did, like a nincompoop. That's apparently my word for the day. So there's a bunch of different ways, and you would get wax on the whole thing, let the wax cool and harden, and then you would just like fold it up and crack it. Let's see, like this, wherever you wanted there to be these little things. You could pick off some of the wax. I would do a thin layer, thinner than this, but you would just crack it where you want there to be some of the black showing through. And then I would just dip the whole thing in the black at that point. You could paint the black on, but if you're going for an all over crackle effect, then hopefully you will have sealed this pretty well with the wax, and then it would only get black where you wanted to crackle it. And then let it dry, obviously, until it's nice and dry. And then we're going to remove the wax. And we do that by, you can get some newspaper. Again, we have a lot of old newspapers here at the library. So if you don't have a bunch of newspaper lying around, you could certainly come and ask us for some. But you would sandwich this between sheets of newspaper, and then you're just gonna iron it. Probably I would say a lowish heat. I don't know. Did I say in there? No, I don't say what temperature to put it on. But basically the heat of the iron is gonna melt the wax, and then the newspaper is gonna absorb it. So you're gonna have to switch out your newspaper every now and again once you notice that, like, if it's starting to change color or become like a little translucent, translucent. Once you see that it has a lot of wax on it, then you're gonna wanna switch out the newspaper. But you're just gonna keep ironing it and ironing it and ironing it until no more wax is bleeding onto the newspaper. And by then, the wax will be all gone, and you will be left with your lovely batik. This is still wet, so this is not gonna work, but let's just see if I can peel this wet. No, I can't. I thought I was gonna be able to peel that wax off and like see my white fabric underneath, but it will not work. So, yep, you really do have to iron it. So you'll just iron, 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 and then there will be white splodges where there will be white fabric showing where your batik, where you batiqued. So that is pretty much it. If you have any questions, please get in touch with me, or if you want to send me a video of you doing wonderfully with your Jantung pen, I would love to see that. I hope that you all have great success with those. Or if you want to send me a picture of your final product, you can send it to Facebook, Portland Library. I'm sure you're all friends with us on Facebook, so you probably know that. But or my email address is cgrimnick@portlandmilibrary.com. And I think that's going to flash up on your screen. But yes, please do send me pictures of your finished product, or send me a video of you batiking so successfully that it will put me to shame, or whatever you would like. And just as an FYI, I'm just gonna tack this on at the end as a little commercial. We do have some in-person programs coming up. So our take and make for October is full, but on September 29th, which is next Thursday, we are having seed mosaics. We're making seed mosaics. And in November, I think it's at the very end of November, we're doing a lovely beach glass, either holiday themed or beach themed, kind of a mosaic kind of a thing, with beach glass. And you can get more information on those by stopping in at the library or calling us. And happy crafting. I need to take off my rubber gloves so I can turn off the camera without getting dye all over it. So thank you. I hope you come up with lovely batiks. Goodbye.